Hello and welcome to today's Bitrix24 webinar, Total Telephony. Thank you very much for joining today. Okay, so first of all, we'll just go through an introduction. So my name is Sam Connor. I'm sales manager here at Interface, and we're Bitrix24 Gold Partners. So we're based in the UK, the US, and Hong Kong. And what we do is we offer a full range of services to assist you with Bitrix24. So starting off with pre-sale support. So if you're currently looking to evaluate Bitrix24, we can help you with that evaluation process. So we can learn about your requirements, build out a bespoke demonstration for you, and see if Bitrix24 could be a good fit for what you're trying to achieve. And if it is a good fit, then we can help with the implementation. So we can set up your Bitrix24 system and design it out exactly how you need it to work. And if you're interested in the self-hosted edition of Bitrix, then we offer our own hosting service, and we also provide bespoke training and ongoing dedicated support to help organizations get the most possible value out of the Bitrix24 system. So if you do need any assistance, you can contact us, sales@interface.com, and one of our team will be happy to help you. Okay, so before we go into today's Total Telephony webinar and really deep dive into the telephony functionality, I just want to first of all go through a bit more information about what Bitrix24 actually is. So essentially, Bitrix24 is a collaboration suite of well in excess now of 40 different tools that you can use to help you to manage your business. And that ranges from CRM, project management, HR, and workflow solutions. But obviously, in today's webinar, we're going to be focusing on the total telephony webinar here. So we're going to be looking at the telephony features within the system. Now, in terms of the scale of Bitrix24, there are over 15 million customers now around the world that use the Bitrix24 system. And the system is available in two different editions. So we have the Bitrix cloud system, and we also have the Bitrix self-hosted solution. And when we say self-hosted, essentially that's a private cloud solution that you can host on your own local server, or you can host this on your own private cloud. And then in terms of pricing, so prices start from around $49 per month for a cloud-based system. So that's starting on the basic cloud. And then the self-hosted starts with the Business 50 edition, which is $3,590 per annum for the first year cost. And then in year two and ongoing annually, you'll pay a renewal fee of approximately 25% to continue to use the self-hosted solution. Okay, so let's now deep dive into telephony in today's Total Telephony webinar. So before we look at the functionality, let's just discuss why you should use Bitrix24 for your telephony requirements. So first of all, with Bitrix24, it's really simple to start to utilize the telephony functionality. So there is a built-in phone system inside the Bitrix24 system. And this also allows you to rent a number directly through Bitrix that you can then start to use straight away and receive calls into Bitrix and also make outbound calls directly out of the system. And that's the first area we'll look at in today's webinar. It is that Bitrix24 rent a number option. That is the built-in phone system solution. But also, it's possible to integrate existing phone structures. So you can integrate with your existing PBX, whether that's a cloud or an Office PBX solution. Bitrix has a SIP connector option, so you can connect your PBX into the Bitrix24 system and connect your phone lines into Bitrix24. And a really key aspect of total telephony today, it's that CRM integration. So we'll see how we can have a really tight integration between the calls coming into Bitrix and having that connected into the CRM system. So we can go into a contacts record and see all of that call history. I can call that client directly through the client's page. So all of that communication log is synced directly into the CRM system, which is a really, really nice feature. And a feature that a lot of CRM systems do not have. And we see a lot of businesses looking at Bitrix24 as a CRM system and having that call history connected inside the CRM is a really powerful tool that a lot of businesses like to utilize. So we'll take a look at that today. Then another feature within Total Telephony that we'll look at today is reporting. So using the Bitrix24 rented number option, there's lots of high-level dashboard reports that you're then able to build inside your Bitrix24 telephony module. And you can then deep dive into all of your users who use the telephone system and incorporate your reporting metrics inside the telephony reporting tools. A key benefit as well of the telephony features we're looking at here, especially if you're renting a Bitrix number, it is the low setup costs. Okay, in terms of renting a number, we'll take a look very shortly. You're going to be looking around $4 to $6 per month to rent a Bitrix24 number. So in terms of that setup cost, it is a low cost to start to test and to utilize the rented number options inside Bitrix24. Now, as I say, as we go through today's webinar, we'll take a look at both options. So first of all, we're going to see how we can use the Bitrix24 rented number option. And then we'll take a look at the integration options as well, if you need to keep your existing numbers. Now, if you have any questions as we go through today's webinar, please do put them into the question box here on YouTube. We are live, and what we can do is then answer your questions directly in the webinar today. Okay, so the first option we're going to look at today in terms of telephony, it's the Bitrix telephony option. So this is where you're renting a number directly through Bitrix24. Okay, so we're going to see how we can set up a number, how we can then configure that number. So essentially, you're going to have a virtual phone system built into your Bitrix24. We'll see how this then connects with the CRM, and we can also look at the soft phone application on the Bitrix mobile app. So let's go over to our Bitrix system. Okay, so this, just to explain, we're in the browser edition of Bitrix24 here. Bitrix is also available on the desktop, and there's a mobile application as well. And what you should see in your Bitrix system on the left-hand side is a telephony module there. That's where you can then go into telephony, but you could also use the universal search tool at the top. And if you can't find the telephony option, then just search here in the top, and that will open up the telephony page. Now, one thing to point out, if I'm an administrator on this demonstration site, so it may be if you're trying to do what I've just done, if you're not able to, it most likely is down to the permission settings on your Bitrix that your administrators might have set. So before we go into telephony, I just want to show you here the access permissions feature, because what we can do inside here is we can create different roles inside the system, and then we can assign those roles to different users or to different departments inside our Bitrix24 system. So based on these access rights, we can then control essentially what users are able to access in terms of telephony. So for example, in terms of setting up the settings in telephony, I might deny access to certain users in terms of who can manage numbers and then build out dashboard reports with the statistics. Again, we have different permission settings here for each role. So if you're not able to see some of the features we're looking at today, most likely it's down to those permission issues. Okay, and I say issues that probably the setup is correct for your business. But if you feel like you've got permission settings that aren't configured correctly, please do get in contact with us. We help a lot of businesses to get the permissions set up correctly. And it's a really important area to make sure you have that set up correct, because if you don't, it may mean a user accidentally makes a change inside here that could cause a big impact in the business. So it's an area that's really crucial to make sure that you have set up correctly. Okay. Okay, so as we've mentioned, the first option we're looking at today is the ability to rent a Bitrix24 number. So this is what we call the built-in telephony system. This is the Bitrix telephony option. Okay, so what we can do to do this is we can go over here under the telephony aspect here. We can see the rent a number option. So what we want to do here is click in there. And then what we need to do is then select the country that we would like to rent the number for. Okay, so we've got all of these different countries. So I'm in the UK, so I want to rent a UK number. I can then choose the type of number as well. So let's say you might want, especially if you're in the United States, we can take a look at that shortly. You might want to have a toll-free number, or maybe I want to have a mobile number in this case. So there's different options for the type of number once you've selected your country. Let's say I want to choose a local number, and then inside here, I can go down to my local area, Sheffield, and then I could select that as the region for the localization of the number. And then you can see that's going to cost me $6 per month to rent that number. And in terms of that cost, inbound calls are included in that charge. Okay, so that means every call that comes to that number, that's included in that $6 per month rate. Okay, and then outbound calls, they are charged per minute based on the country that you are calling to. Okay, so if we go over to here, here are the calling rates, and what I've done here, I've clicked into see all rates, and then I can go into here and see this is for today, so this can change each day, but essentially it's going to be very similar each day here. These are the call rates for calling based on the country, and you can see the landline cost and the mobile cost here. So what we're going to do is I'm just going to add this into the chat conversation in YouTube, and let's just make that accessible for everyone. There we go. So I've just added that into the chat if you want to have a look at those call rates. And so that will cost you $6 per month to rent. And then you also need to add a balance to your telephony system here. So you can then start to make those outbound calls. Okay, so you need to then top up your call balance here. So once you've rented a number, one thing to mention here, when you do rent a number, you'll see them here in the right-hand side. So you can see my number. So we've got two numbers that we're currently renting, and they're costing us about $6 per month. Now, depending on the country that you're selecting, let's say if I select Germany, for example, then again, for this, there may be a one-off connection cost as well. So that's something to factor in. In the UK, there isn't that connection cost for me. If I was going to rent this German number, there would be. But also, the more important aspect I want to show you here is this authorization. Okay, so for certain countries and jurisdictions, you need to submit a valid postal address. So you need to upload that verification documentation before you're able to rent a number. So that's something to check before you go through the actual verification process. Make sure you have that postal address information that you are able to submit. So it's not the same for every country, but there are certain countries, I believe as well, here for Ireland as well. Again, you need to upload a valid postal address. So that's something to bear in mind when you're going to be renting numbers, that you do need to have that valid address information if you are going to rent a number. Okay, so now we've rented those numbers, I can see those numbers now in our system here. What I can then do is I can go into those numbers, and essentially we can set up a virtual phone system for each number. So this is where we start to really get the power in the telephony system here. So if I go into configure this particular number, then what we can do inside here is for each number that we rent, we can configure all of these settings here for essentially setting up a virtual phone system inside our Bitrix24 system. So first of all, we've got the settings here for inbound call routing. So what I can do here is I can, first of all, when the call comes in, what do I want the user to hear? So we've got, say, some welcome music, For example, I can also set up a voice menu. So with this, essentially, that is what we call an IVR menu. So when the customer calls in, we can set up menu options that the customer can select from to be directed to a specific area of the business, for example. And before we go into that, I just want to show you what we can set up our queue groups. Okay, so within the system here, you can create different groups, which are going to be the different users, most likely the different departments, and you can then add users to their relevant groups. So here, for example, I've got our sales group, so all of our sales departments are in this particular group. And then we've got our support group here. So I can click into the support group and see all of our support team, and I can add relevant users into that group like so. Okay. And then what we can do, if we now go back into the voice menu section, here we can then select the different options for the customer. So for example, here we're going to say for option 1, we're going to forward this. So there's different options, but I'm going to forward this call then to that specific queue group. So we're going to forward this to the sales team. Whereas if we select option 2, then I can select our support team. So it's really useful because then what you can easily do is distribute those phone calls to the relevant teams and departments inside your organization using Bitrix24. So here, what we can do to relay that communication to the customer, we can type out our text. So here we've got select 1 for sales or 2 for support, and I can choose the language, the speed, and the volume that message then gets relayed to the customer. And what we can also do as another option is we can upload our own audio file if you want to. So rather than having that text to speech option, you could upload your own audio message with your own more personalized communication to the client. So that's a really good way to distribute calls. We've then got our CRM integration setting. So what we can do here is we can automatically create a new lead if the number that calls into the system isn't registered inside the CRM. So if we wanted to have that automatically generate a brand new record inside Bitrix, we can turn on the automatic creation of a new lead. And what we can then do as well with that integration is we can turn on the save recording of calls. So that's a really useful feature. You can turn that on, and then all of the call history is going to be recorded inside Bitrix24. And it might be important for you to play a warning message on those inbound calls that the customer is going to have the call recorded. So you can record that information like so. As an additional service and additional cost as well, there is the option to transcribe calls as well. So that's an option you may be interested in. Later on, I will also show you some of the Copilot features available in Bitrix that can actually transcribe the call directly inside a lead page. We've got our working hours. So actually your call center team or your teams who are able to answer calls and make calls, they may have set hours. So we can have our time settings here for the working hours. And then you've also got the option here for your out of hours call processing. So what needs to happen actually if a call does come in during that out of hours time, you might want to enable voicemail, or maybe you forward that call to a specific number, or you could just end the call. There's different options that you have, or you can upload some information. And so for all of these settings here, what we can do is configure the setting configuration for every single number that we rent from Bitrix24. So it allows you to have a complete virtual phone system straight into Bitrix24. And as I say, we've just seen there, this is then built into your Bitrix24 system. So what I'm going to do now is we're going to call one of our rented numbers. Okay, so we're going to see here what this looks like for the user in Bitrix who is now going to be dealing with a call. Okay, so we're calling into the system.
This call may be recorded for quality assurance purposes. Hello, thank you for your call.
Okay, so what we'll see now is the call information will sync into Bitrix24.
This call may be recorded for quality assurance purposes.
Select 1 for sales or 2 for support.
Okay, so we can see Sam Connor is calling in, so it's popped up with the UI there, and I can then answer or transfer the call through the system like so. So that pops up with that history. So it's a really, really nice UI there. And as we mentioned already, that call could have been routed to myself. Okay, so we can have that call routing. I selected one for sales. So that call was then routed to the sales team, which I'm part of here. So I can then answer that call. And if we go into the CRM system, let's just take a look at the integration in a little more detail, because what we can then also see is if we go into the contacts record inside Bitrix, then what we have here is all of that call history saved inside the CRM. So I can play those calls back. I can also click and call. And so all of that history is then saved inside the system. So you've got that complete communication log directly through the Bitrix24 platform. And we have a lot of call centers that use Bitrix24 for this really tight CRM integration. And another really nice feature inside here is the ability to do a semi-automated dialer system through Bitrix. So I've got my list of leads inside the system. Then I can call them directly through here as a list. So I could also assign a list to a specific person. So here I might want to select from my leads. So I could bulk select from my lead database here. I'm going to create a call list for one of our sales staff. So let's call this okay. And what I'm going to do, I'm going to assign this to one of our sales reps. And I can then see their calendar here. So I can see Mark is away on Wednesday and Thursday. So I'm going to put this into for his calendar on Friday afternoon. And that's now going to be saved as an activity inside their calendar. So they can then complete that call list inside the system. And one of the features within the CRM that's, again, a really nice feature is the ability to do robocalls directly through the system here. So what we can also do is we can set up a call inside the system using essentially a voice bot. So similar to the IVR menu, but so at a specific stage of the sales process, we could set up an automated call. Okay, so I can type out the message, and again, it's text to speech. Okay, so it's going to translate what we're typing out here into the message. Okay, so what this is going to do is automatically, once the lead has been at the new lead stage for 5 days, it's going to automatically call the lead and translate this information to them as a phone call. So when they pick that phone call up, it's going to relay this information. Or again, you could set up an audio file, into the system. So again, this could be a really powerful way you start to utilize automated telephony technology through the Bitrix24 CRM system. Okay, so that is a look at Bitrix24 Telephony. So that's set up with a virtual phone system and using that integration with the CRM system, and then making those outbound call lists and robocall applications. So that's the first way of using telephony inside Bitrix. But as I say, using the rented number option, it will then be using a brand new number for the organization. You're not able to port an existing number using that Bitrix rented number feature. So there are a lot of businesses as well that want to keep their existing numbers that they've had for a long time, all of their clients and the businesses fully built into that telephone number. So it's not possible to incorporate a new number into their business and to their way of working. Or it could be actually the business has a really comprehensive costing plan with their phone provider that they don't want to actually move away from. So it's not commercially viable for them to leave their contract. So there are reasons why you would want to keep your existing phone lines and phone providers. And that's where the integration elements can be then very useful within Bitrix24. So what we'll do to look at the integrations, let's come back out of the CRM and let's go into the telephony module. And rather than now looking at that rented number option, we're going to look at first of all, the Office PBX and the Cloud PBX option. Okay, so if you have a Cloud or an Office PBX, then you have the option here to use the SIP connector. Okay, so what the SIP connector allows you to do is to connect your PBX system with Bitrix24. So there's two options here. So obviously it depends what your PBX is, whether it's a cloud or an Office PBX. But here we can then connect the cloud PBX. So we then have to fill in the credentials in this form. The process is exactly the same for the Office PBX, except that the credential information is slightly different. But it's the same filling in the information in the form. And then once you fill that information in, you then have a free 60 minutes to configure the application and test outbound calling to make sure the outbound call process works correctly using the SIP connector. And then what you can do is you can purchase the SIP connector for your information of calls, okay, into the system. So using that SIP connector, it's going to cost $49 per month to purchase the rental of that SIP connector. And then you just continue with your phone contract that you have with your provider. There are no additional phone line charges inside the Bitrix24 system. And that's the same for both the Cloud PBX and the Office PBX option. So that SIP connector is going to cost $49 per month. You can then integrate your phone lines into Bitrix24. Okay. Now, if that isn't an option for you, then another option is going into the marketplace. So the marketplace is essentially the app store built into Bitrix. So this is where there are hundreds and hundreds of third-party applications that you can then integrate into your Bitrix24 system. So if we go into the search area here and go into integrations, then what we have here is the ability to look at the telephony integration. So there are quite a lot of integrations available through the App Store here, and some really popular ones such as Ring Central, for example. Now, you just need to check each application because there are restrictions. So, for example, if you're on a free plan of Bitrix, then you've only got a trial period. You need to upgrade to a commercial Bitrix24 license to be able to integrate the Ring Central application. There's other ones such as Zadama as well, and My Hub Android calls. So there's quite a lot of well-known integrations that you could then integrate, and that then allows you to connect with your phone provider into Bitrix24. The third option, if none of those options work and it's critical for you to keep your existing phone numbers, then we can look to use the API to actually build a direct integration with your phone infrastructure. That is more complex, and it would be a lot more costly, looking in the region of somewhere between 10 to 20,000 US dollars, depending on the complexity. And if that's something you're interested in, we've worked with businesses before that have done that to get their integration completed, then you can contact us, sales@interface.com, and we'll be happy to open up a conversation with you to discuss this in some more detail with you. Okay, so that's then looking at how we could integrate using the SIP connector, applications inside the marketplace, or the API. Okay, so let's just see if we've had any questions come in here. Okay, yeah, we've had a question around reporting on rented numbers. So actually, we're going to look at reporting just in a few minutes as we go through the next stages of today's Total Telephony webinar. We'll take a look at the dashboard reports that you can build inside your Bitrix system. Okay, but just before we do look at reporting, I just want to run through the costs because we've discussed quite a lot of different costs in today's Total Telephony webinar. So if we just look at the first option, Bitrix24 Telephony call rates. So first of all, renting the number is going to cost between $4 to $6 per month of renting the number. There could also be a connection cost as a one-off cost. And then you will also need to pay for the outbound calls based on the country that you are calling to, and you'll pay per minute as a call rate. We put the call rates into the YouTube chat here, so you can click on there and see all of the call rates for the different countries, for landline and mobile options. If you're going to do an integration using the SIP connector for either a cloud or an Office PBX, that will cost $49 per month for a rental of that SIP connector. And then we've mentioned that in terms of an integration, a direct integration, you're going to be looking at a cost between 10 to 20,000 US dollars for an integration. But in terms of those options, we can discuss those in more detail with you, really help you to evaluate which is the most appropriate for you. Just contact us and we can have a conversation with you about those. Okay, and then moving on to reporting. So if you've rented a Bitrix24 number, there are some really nice reporting features available inside Bitrix. So first of all, if we click into the call details feature, here you're going to see a history of every single call logged through Bitrix, whether that's inbound or outbound. And you can then filter through that history. So for example, I might just want to look at all of the calls associated to a specific employee, for example. I can drill down into that data. If the call's been recorded, I can play that call back through here. I can download those calls, and I can customize the actual UI here of this dashboard of information. And I can then also export this data out of Bitrix into Excel. But another really nice feature available in Bitrix is the call statistics area. So this analyzes and incorporates all of that call history through your Bitrix rented telephone numbers, and then allows you to build out dashboard reports. So you can add information into here, filter to drill down into specific data. So we've got call statistics history here. I might want to look at all of our unanswered calls and maybe the call density. So actually, when are we most busy with inbound and outbound calls based on the days and times of the week? So I can see here, this is when we're actually missing most calls around a Tuesday, around nearly at 6 p.m. on a Tuesday. So we need to have more staff scheduled at that time period. So this gives you that really high level overview of all of that call history in a really nice UI dashboard. And then we can also drill down to employee performance. So we can look at their involvement in calls across all of the distribution of our team members here. And we can see the average call durations across our team, or maybe their missed call reactions, how quickly they call back the clients when a call is missed. So there's lots of dashboards that we can build out using the rented numbers within Bitrix, using our dashboard tool here. Okay, so that is a look at reporting, and that then brings us to an end of today's Bitrix24 Total Telephony webinar. In terms of a summary here, we've seen how we can use Bitrix24 telephony functionality to actually set up a virtual phone system really easily inside Bitrix with a low setup cost. And then we also have the option to connect our existing lines using integrations, such as using the SIP connector or marketplace applications. And really importantly, we've got that really nice tight integration with the CRM, so we can have calls routed to relevant team members. The call history is saved inside the client's record, and we can click to call and create call lists through the CRM. And then lastly there, we've seen how we can build out dashboard reports, analyzing all of that call history through our data of calls. So that is the end of today's Total Telephony webinar. You can register for our next webinars, intraface.com/webinars. And we're here every other Tuesday at 11 a.m. Eastern time. It's 3 p.m. UTC, 4 p.m. British Standard Time. And if you have any questions before our next webinar, please do drop us a message, sales@intraface.com. And one of our team will be happy to have a conversation with you, whether that's if you're evaluating Bitrix or if you have maybe some customization or setup requirements. We specialize in helping businesses to get the most value out of their Bitrix24 system. Thank you very much for your time today, and I look forward to seeing you on our upcoming webinars. Bye for now.